There we are. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday morning, and I am here with my wonderful friend, Mary Beth Simone. Hi, Simone. Hi, Mary Beth. What am I doing here?
Hi,
All right.
Heike. Good
All
to be
right.
with you.
Oh, I'm already screwing up my interview right from the beginning. That's when you're all excited and really, really seriously. I've been so looking forward to talking to Mary Beth. Mary Beth and I have known each other for a few years now, and I have watched her grow and change and do all the amazing things. And I want to share we have about 27 minutes, and I would love for us to dive in a little bit of what Mary Beth actually does. She's a contingency planner for individuals, but also for business. And then she also has like something where she tells that we can actually go on vacation a little bit more. So I am just like totally curious about what that all involves because I'm always up for an extra vacation. So, Mary Beth, again, thank you so much for coming on with me this morning. And if you guys are here in the audience, let us know. If you're listening to the show later, I hope you will leave some comments and something that you've heard today. But we are seriously all about getting visible, and growing in our business is one part of being visible. So we're going to dive into that with Mary Beth today. So let's just back up. Mary Beth, when did you and I actually meet? Like, what was that first encounter that you and I had? Because I think that was a big stepping stone for you into moving into your visibility. And actually, we're talking about that first photo shoot we did together.
Yeah, so I think we first met in 2019 when I came to the ABWA meeting in Lancaster. Maybe I saw you present something, or somehow I got a hold of your website, and I went onto your website and I saw your photography, and I was like, oh, my next photography session is going to have to be with Heike. And I told you that when I met you.
Yeah, I know you did. But then the funny thing is, we did not start off with brand photography for you. We started off with a completely different project because you had started teaching Les Mills, and that for me was like a catalyst in your own career change. So I would love to hear a little bit more on like what went on there. Like what
Yeah. So I retired from Vanguard at the end of 2018 after over 30 years of working with them. So I did project and program management. And at the point that I retired, I knew that I wanted to start my own business and that I was going to have to spend some time working on it before I was able to open the doors to my business. And in the meantime, I decided to work on getting certified as a Les Mills body flow or body balance, they call it now, instructor. And I always loved yoga. And I thought that someday I would like to become a yoga instructor. When I learned about Les Mills, the certification process is a little bit faster than other yoga certification
Okay.
processes. And so I was taking the class at 6 o'clock in the morning at our local Y. And one morning, this thought popped in my head, and it was, you could teach this. And so I spoke to the instructor who also ran the group exercise program and said, I'm thinking about getting certified. And she said, okay, that's great. We'll put you on as a Y employee, and that'll cut down on the cost for your certification fees. And when you get certified, you can teach this class. I
That's
said,
amazing.
okay. So
Oh,
it took a few months, but I mean, there were a couple things that motivated me to do that. Was that because I was working on creating my business and creating the website and all of that kind of stuff, it was a very mentally demanding work to do that. And so I wanted something equally physically demanding to help keep me balanced
yeah.
going through, because I can get really stuck in my head. And I also wanted to challenge myself to be in front of people and to be memorizing things, because I knew that eventually public speaking would need to be part of my visibility strategy.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so that's pretty much all like the background of why I did that.
You just bring up an interesting point. You said it was part of your visibility strategy because you knew already down the road that speaking would be something you wanted to do. I did not know that. That just opens up like a whole, okay, we don't do anything in our lives that doesn't make sense in a way, right?
Right.
Like needing to think through like how does this piece fit in with the next piece to then start growing from there. So that is huge. So it gave you confidence. I'm looking at you said like, okay, you said like talking in front of people, but I would also imagine just doing the exercising, the physical, like from posture to stamina to breathing, because when you have to talk, you're already nervous.
Right.
So having that breathing capability, and so there's like so many other positive aspects from doing exercising, from doing the Les Mills and yoga postures and all of that comes with it.
Yeah. And like I had to keep my audience engaged, and build an audience and all of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to keep challenging myself, even though I was doing this very behind the scenes work, and challenge myself to be, out front and center and to manage my nerves and to grow my confidence and all of that.
That is amazing. I mean, I'm so glad you shared that story because I had no idea. I knew about the background, like how you got into it, but I didn't realize the impact this would have on, again, like your visibility down the road and now what you're doing actually with being on big stages. You just came back from Chicago, from speaking at a conference there. And so make that big jump here. Let's tie that in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's been just a series of many little steps forward, right? And of course, some steps backwards, but many little steps forward that have gotten me from retiring from corporate to being on a big stage in Chicago, speaking to, a room of over 50 group practice owners. And so I guess there have just been a lot of different pieces to this puzzle. So working with Speaking Your Brand, who you've also worked with to create my signature talk, and working through doing a lot of, remote speaking, right? Because right after I opened my business, then we had the global pandemic. Which kept me back, kept me on Zoom, helped my business grow virtually, since I had only been working with people in person up to the point of the pandemic. And then everything had to go virtual and I was able to go national right away, which was wonderful. Wow. Yeah. So, and having that experience of doing all of those virtual events, and then slowly this year getting back into in-person events. I did one in Lancaster at the Pennsylvania Sustainable Agriculture Conference, and then in Chicago for the group practice owners.
Yeah. That is so interesting. So let's also back up with that a little bit. You talk to so many different types of businesses. Give us just a hint of what contingency planning actually is all about, because I know in your talks now you do some training on that. You give at least a good grounding for what people need to look for. Can you give us just a bit of an overview of, because it's behind the scenes, it's nitty-gritty stuff that we don't want to do, but yet it allows us to be visible in our business with confidence because we know this is something taken care of and we can relax into actually doing our business. So I would love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, that's so true, Heike. I mean, so contingency planning is really about doing everything that is needed for your personal life and in your business to support the long range plans that you have related to your estate plan, any succession planning. And so, as Heike says, this is the nitty gritty behind the scenes work of how do you run your finances and your life? How are things organized? I create a system that I share with my clients to get everything organized around their finances, their legal documents, everything around their their titles to their vehicles, their passports, everything that they have, so that it is in one succinct organization structure. And the same thing for businesses. So I work with them. Many business owners come in and they work with me to create their personal contingency plan and then a contingency plan for their business, which basically empowers their key employee to be able to step in and keep the business running if the owner is unavailable. And it never ceases to happen when I'm working with a business owner that something happens that takes one or the other of the key business people out of the mix for a little while, taking care of a family member or something happens, and they need the plan. And right while we're creating the plan, they see why they need the plan. And then the next piece of it is a business continuance playbook where I do the documentation of all of the business owner standard operating procedures.
Yeah. And that again, like, is so crucial. I mean, you and I have worked together more on my personal side actually at this point, and just realizing, I thought I'm so organized. I'm a very analytical person in so many ways, and yet there were so many holes in things that I needed that I didn't have in place, or just, it's like, oh, I have it, but where is it? That's the other thing. It's not just I don't have it, but it's like, where the heck is it?
Right.
It's somewhere, and I forgot to make copies, and then it's like, how do you tell the next person where to find anything? So especially with my husband, and again, like now moving into having my own business, it was so important to have him in as a second on all of my credit cards, all of the different accounts that we have, so that if something happens, I know he can be there and take over.
Exactly.
So,
if you needed to go overseas for an emergency, or, we have no idea what is going to happen.
We really don't. And it's like these little things, like we get AAA just in case something happens on the road. So to me, it's the same kind of thought behind this. If something happens to me, I know I can tap someone, or don't even have to tap because they already have that information.
Right. They already know where to begin.
Yeah. And it's in a way, like for me, again, like I work with so many other small businesses because I do photography for them, but it's that knowledge of, because it's usually a longer process too. We start at a certain place, like they do a retainer fee to book my services. But by the time we're finished, like if something would happen to me in between and you have to return fees, you have to do this. I mean, you also want to make sure that your clients are taken care of, again, behind the scenes, for all this stuff that you don't really see.
That's right.
As you're working together. So it's so incredibly important to have all of those pieces in place. But you talked about one. We talk about more like the negative sides of, like emergency and something happening and all of that. But you alluded to something in the title, and you shared the title, what we wanted to talk about like having that extra cash for vacation, or just adding a little bit of that extra time. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, I mean, more than having money for vacation, it's really about having the space and the systems in your business that allow you to take more vacation. And so creating your contingency plan and preparing your second in command, when you look at all of the things that you do as a business owner, when we're going through this process, there are often opportunities to either subcontract out some work or to delegate to team members, because business owners through the pandemic, unfortunately, have taken on more responsibility, have become more enmeshed in their business.
Yeah.
And there is a serious case of business owner burnout since 2020, and it has been continuing. And part of the reason for that is that business owners are holding on to responsibilities that may have arisen, through needing to pivot through the pandemic. So it is a good time to take a step back. And through this process, we evaluate the roles and responsibilities of the business owner. And sometimes there are things that just can be streamlined and simplified. So one business owner that I worked with had opened a bank account in every place where he had bought property. So He was
Yeah.
a large business owner, and he had bought property in all of these different locations. Well, that was, in the 90s that habit started. And now we don't need to have a physical bank in every place where we are doing business. So those kind of opportunities to streamline your own operations arise, and that creates time for the business owner, and it makes them able to take more vacation and to do more remote work.
Which is amazing. I love that whole idea because, like you said, like we do have that burnout happening, and it is not something easy to deal with. So having more things in place to then actually be out and about. And I think part of, like, again, like after the pandemic, not being again like more in person, doing more networking, doing actually the communication, the visibility sort of process, and being able to relax and have all of the back end stuff in place and let it do its work.
Right.
I mean, that's seriously what it's all about. And I say the same thing when I work with my clients on branding photography. It's instead of like wasting so much time online, constantly trying to find imagery and doing this and that in order to, again, like I need to have visibility on social media and my emails and all of the things. It's like, go and come, get it done one time, and then you can sit and relax again. You have your image bank you can start using and working with that. And that's sort of actually what you and I have done, is with the Les Mills. Now that was part of the book that I did, but still it gave you some visibility back then. It also gave you some confidence.
Yeah. It was wonderful. And I mean, I think that allowed me to share a side of myself that I wasn't sure I was going to bring out in my business.
Exactly.
But I was able to do it in a professional way.
Yeah. And it's, again, one of those things you probably don't overshare too much of that, but there's a confidence level and like you said, like a little bit of a different side that can flow into the business portion. I mean, it's again like a timing and sensibility sort of decision to make how much you share of that. But then as your business was growing, then again, like I'm needing to step into now my own business with the back end stuff, like what can you always improve and where do you need to add that next piece of sustainability in a way in the business. Then again, like your visibility to the outside comes in, and you need to grow that portion as well.
Right.
And that's when you and I stepped in and we did the next photo shoot for you, because you are becoming a speaker. So you had no images of yourself.
I didn't as a speaker. Yeah. So it was perfect timing. And I had it in the back of my mind that I needed to do it. And then I changed my hair color slightly right before the conference. And I'm like, Heike, I need new photos now because my hair doesn't look the same. So yeah, it was perfect. I felt so much better going into the conference with my new headshots.
Yeah, because I mean, all of this adds credibility to who you are. Like you are, again, like you know so much about what you have to offer. You're an expert. But if your imagery is sort of like from the 10 years ago and from your previous job or like a completely different area, then how does that translate again in sharing with your audience who you are?
Right.
So it's really interesting for me then as we're talking and I'm understanding more about what you actually do, like how do we translate that into imagery that really brings out your personality, what you bring to the table as an expert on contingency planning and all the back end things, and then allows you to step onto big stages like this.
Yeah. That was wonderful.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I worked with someone else just the other week, and actually she and I had worked like multiple times, and so it was really fun to watch. And that's what I'm hoping to see with yours too. Is like, how do you combine a little bit from the past with a little bit from the future with who you are today, and allow people to see that big picture of growth in who you are and what you bring to the table, and grow that visibility. I think the visibility, what you're giving with you, what you do with the contingency planning is like you build confidence that I can take off. Like I can go on vacation. I can spend time with my family in Germany and I don't have to worry.
Right.
And I feel like I do the same thing with the photography. I help you build confidence in that outwardly thing.
Yeah. And I think the big difference with the photography is that, so I had a photo shoot in the early days before I opened my business. So I didn't even know as much about my business and what my offer was at
Yeah.
that time as I knew when I worked with you.
Yeah.
And I just feel like my business had changed and I had grown so much as an
Mm.
entrepreneur
Yeah.
that I did need a different look and a different visibility strategy at that point because I had changed.
Yeah. And I think we sometimes forget that. We think like, oh, I still look the same and I'm still like who I am. And yes, we are underneath. But for you to realize the changes that you've made in your own life, and I think just the personal growth that comes with that, which then also changes somewhat our demeanor and how we show up. And I think all of those pieces together just create like a whole different vision for ourselves, but then also like how we come across to our audiences.
Yeah.
And that needs to show. I mean, if we can't show any growth, then we're always saying it's like, oh, we're still kind of stagnant. We're still back in the 80s. We're really good. We haven't done anything to improve. So then why should you listen to us?
Yeah. And I felt like one of the big differences when I worked with you on my branding photo shoot is I really knew what I wanted.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted certain types of photographs. And so it was just so much easier going into it, knowing what I wanted.
Yeah. And that to me is like the fun part of like, again, like pulling this out of my clients, out of you at the time, but also watching then again the progression of like, so this is what we did. We took the photos of you speaking, now watching you again grow with that. Like there's again like bigger things happening, and it allows you just opens doors for again this growth to continue to happen. So can't wait to see like what might happen in 2-3 years, like where you're at. Like if we really need to bring in some bigger on the stage sort of photography to add that into your mix. But that's the beauty of growing as a person. It's the beauty of growing as a business, is that we can add to that kind of visibility, and we can add to the content of what we're willing to share about the stories, the visual stories that we tell. And so it's been total delight for me to watch that growth happen in you. And I know you're still on a journey, and there's more to come. And so I want to make sure too, like as we've talked about contingency planning, but also like you mentioned again, like the how your business is actually run, and taking note and adding all that information in so that someone else can easily take over and follow those instructions. So we are definitely going to make sure that link to your information is going to be entered as we're done here.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so that people can check you out and make sure that they start thinking. I think it's one of those things we just don't want to deal with because it's not the fun part, but it is such a relief. And I cannot tell you this from my own experience. It is so helpful to have that in place. So I would love for us, like I ask all of my guests to have a quote that they live by, or something that inspires them, or just something that really, again, gives us a little bit of glimpse into who you are. And it's a way for us to share with the audience something that they can maybe take home for themselves. Because we all need that encouragement. We all need a little bit of a lift. We all need something to think about and grow in our visibility in so many multiple different ways. So, Mary Beth.
So I love quotes, and I send them out every week in my newsletter. So it's hard for me to say like my favorite, but today I was looking, and so this is my favorite for today. Where there is no struggle, there is no strength. And that's by Oprah Winfrey. I'm like, that's so perfect.
And that's just so perfectly ties in with your own LinkedIn lives that you do in the episode. So anybody, again, like I didn't even mention that earlier, but if you have a chance, Mary Beth, actually, she does twice monthly live episodes on LinkedIn, and they are stories from struggle to strength, and they're incredible stories. I've listened to quite a few of them. I was a guest myself one time, because we all have stories. So they can be in form of just sharing them. They can be in the form of like actually bringing those stories to life in photography. So we really would like to invite all of you from a different, where we are and with a different kind of background that both Mary Beth and I bring to the table. There are different ways of sharing who you are and sharing it with your audiences. So if you have stories, we would love to hear them. Again, I will have Mary Beth's links down in the comment section after we're done here. And we would love to get some feedback in what you heard, maybe a nugget that you're taking with you. And just for the fun of it, maybe your favorite vacation that you would like to plan and where you would like to head. So let us know. All right. It was wonderful to have all of you here. And we are at 25 minutes. I promise it would be no more than 27. And I'm holding myself to it.
Awesome.
So let's get visible with Heike. And again, thank you so much, Mary Beth, for joining me today on Get Visible with Heike.
Thanks, Heike. It was great to be with you.
And everyone have a wonderful day. Enjoy your cup of coffee.